I don't want it. I want to have a relationship. I want somebody who's going to love me and going to love them. I don't want something to interfere with my relationship. And so they feel like Yiddishkeit is somehow going to interfere with their relationship. My father and mother never get to talk to each other. They never get to be together. Or there's always this, there's always that. I don't want it. And so they walk away. They're making a mistake. What they don't understand is that with Yiddishkeit, when your relationship comes first, it actually enhances everything. Yiddishkeit, when you have a relationship with God, it enhances your relationship with your spouse. Let me take that back. Let me say that differently. When you have a relationship with God, it can enhance your relationship with your wife if you recognize this. If you recognize this, that they're part of they're part of the same thing. That relationship, Avas Hashem, Avas Yisrael, is really the same thing. And the first place to start Avas Yisrael is at home with a person's spouse. It's have a relationship. Another interesting thing I want to talk to you about, now we're talking about these things, I want to talk about emotion. This is an important thing, and this is what I call $1 million point. I find it interesting. When a man becomes angry, what is the intention of his anger? The intention of his anger is usually to distance, to pull away. He becomes angry. Anger usually means for a man, leave me alone. Putting up a boundary, leave me alone. Most of the time, when women are angry at their men, is exactly the opposite. They're angry because they want to get closer. They're angry because they feel like there's a separation going on between them and the spouse. And they feel like anger is a heightened emotion, and if you really want to get across how you feel, the emotion gets even stronger. So a woman says, where were you last night? I can't believe that you didn't come home, you didn't call. Why didn't you call? And you feel your wife's anger. And when you feel your wife's anger, how do you interpret it? She's angry at me. Okay, I'll leave her alone. Big mistake. She's trying to connect, and you walk away. And men and women don't understand this.
Is that an umbrella for everybody?
No, it's not an umbrella for everybody, but I can tell you, it is an umbrella for everybody at some point in their marriage. At some point in their marriage, this is the mistake everybody makes. That when one person gets angry at the other, they back off. A couple comes to me yesterday, non-Jewish couple, and she goes off at him that he doesn't do this for her, and he doesn't do that for her, and he doesn't do the other thing for her, and he betrayed her because he lied to her. What's the story? They're very angry. And then she says to me, and then what happened? At night, we went to bed. He goes into his own bed. The worst thing of all, he keeps a distance from me. He won't even be together with me. And I say to him, well, what's the story? He says, boy, oh boy, I can't believe she's saying this. I say, why not? He says, last night, she yelled at me for 20 minutes. She was angry for me 20 minutes. I was in the doghouse. I felt the last thing she wanted was to be with me. And then I go into my own bed to separate from her so that she should feel safe. She starts yelling at me again. I can't win, he says. What's going on over here? I thought I was doing the nicest thing. She was angry at me. I'd leave her alone. I'd give her a space. And this goes backwards and forwards. What's really going on over here? She was expressing anger to get closer to him. To hear him say, I'm sorry. To hear him say, okay, let's recommit with our relationship. What did he hear her say? I want you to leave me alone. And he was wrong. He was applying his logic, his thoughts to what was going on. She was applying her thoughts. Who was right? Both of them were right. It's one of the fundamental things I see, is to teach each other that it works differently. Men need a little bit of their separation. Everybody needs to separate. People need to separate, but sometimes we misunderstand the cues which are going on.
So my question is, when men and women are together, it's kedusha,
Right?
and the term by definition means separation. You know that it's like sanctity is to separate, like holiness, Hashem. Now the separation that the people have from Hashem, is that any way related to the separation, like a man and a woman that we're discussing here?
I'm not sure what you're getting at, but I'll respond to that the way I hear you.
Yeah.
There is kedusha in when a man has to separate when a man and a woman have to separate, there's kedusha, and there's the same kedusha when a man and a woman have to be together. But because we live in an imperfect world, it cannot just be connection all the time, because then you're feeding the Yetzer Hara also. For the connection to be in a way of kedusha, there also has to be separation too, because a man has to feed his spiritual side and the physical side. If a man just has connection with his wife, it won't be kedusha. So therefore, there's a time when he's separate, there's a time when he's together. Both of them, the word kedusha is used. A marriage is kiddushin. He separates, and I think that's what you're referring to. Kiddushin is a man and a woman both separate from the rest of the world. That's also kedusha. So
The question is, you were answering it, but because I'm not even sure what the question is, but the question.
I'm not sure where the word kedusha comes up here. How
But
you're
I'm-
using the
I'm-
term kedusha.
I'm trying to understand how it relates between a man and a woman and Hashem, like this.
Same thing.
We're not on the level of Hashem.
But the simple translation of kedusha is something is sanctified, something is holy.
Yeah.
When a person has kedushin with his wife, he's separating her from everybody else, and he's separating himself from everybody else.
Right.
Then that marriage is a kedushin. That marriage is a holy marriage, and he separates it from everybody else and from anything else, and therefore he's being mekadosh himself to his wife and to nothing else.
So the different ways that the men and women separate,
Right?
that's.
Okay. That's a larger question. I'm not sure how to answer that. I want to take on the point I want to.
Can I interrupt just a lightheaded
I've got to run.
No,
so,
I'm just
yeah.
saying, I'm watching you answering the questions with the Gemara fingers. When you have the non-Jews come, you also go like this?
Of course.
With the Gemara fingers?
You know the story of two Jews walking.
When you learn Gemara, you go like this. I'm watching his feet. I say, what if you have secular people?
Two Jews were walking in Minnesota in the winter on Shabbos. It's 20 below. And one says to the other, "Why don't you talk?" The other guy says, "Freeze your own hands." It's interesting. We see in the Chumash this notion of discussion. One of the problems we do is talking about Vayikach en kichel midvarim, and I want to leave with this because I've got to run, is the idea of discussing with each other, sharing information. We're not used to sharing information. I like to say to Bochrim that marriage goes the exact opposite direction of everything they've done until marriage. That's why for a Bocher, getting married is very difficult. Now, it's not like this in the secular world, but in the religious world it's very different. We tell a Bocher is to sit and learn and not to worry about anything else, and not to worry about the food he eats.
When he's in yeshiva.
When he's in yeshiva, shouldn't be worried about the food he eats. Shouldn't worry. Yeah, Gashmis, yeah. Don't worry about how he looks. Don't worry. Shouldn't look at girls. Shouldn't look at the food he eats. Shouldn't worry too much about it, etc. And not only that, but Daila Chakima Biramiza, we tell him. Why do you speak so much? Speak short and to the point. Then he gets married. The first night, he's eating his soup, and he's thinking, it's got to stay a bocher, right? So he eats his soup and he finishes. And she says, well, how was it? He said, how was what? And she says, how was the soup? He says, good, it's good. She said, did you like it? And he says, yeah. What did you like about it? And he's going like, what the heck is this? What kind of questions are these? What do I like about it? And he says, I don't know. Same thing. He doesn't know. So a man has to retrain his brain, not a man, but a bocher, has to retrain his brain in an entirely different way. after he gets married how to compliment his wife, how to notice things which otherwise he wasn't supposed to notice.
So
Tell her he's beautiful.
Are you saying that they should really have some, they should change in a couple of years earlier? Or
No, absolutely not.
Because it's
Absolutely
cold
not.
turkey.
No.
He'll be out of business. He needs them
The reason, if a man would change before he got married, you see, a man has to struggle with his holiness more than a woman does. And if a man doesn't separate himself from himself a little bit, he will fall. A woman is not like that. A woman is naturally a holy person, naturally a spiritual person. If a man doesn't create a space of holiness for himself, he will become an animal. A woman's not like that. And so a woman can be expressive, she can be emotional, she can care about somebody else, she can care about herself. Doesn't take away from her selfishness. You know why? Doesn't make her more selfish. Life is ultimately selfless for a woman. Having a baby inside you for 9 months means not giving up your room somebody else moves in. It doesn't mean you have to live with somebody else next to you and do their laundry. It means somebody else taking over your body for 9 months. Let me tell you, we have no idea what selflessness is. They know what selflessness is. It's not a concept, it's a fact. Their body's taken over. They have somebody else living inside them. And so, not only that, if a baby cries, they're up. They got to take care of that baby. The baby's going to die if they don't show any connection to it. So they don't need to be taught this kind of sacrifice for somebody else. They have to be taught the opposite. They've got to be taught, you got to take care of yourself. You got to need some space. You can't just be focused on the other person.
Go buy yourself a pair of shoes.
Buy yourself a pair of shoes. Let's go out alone and do something together.
Yes.
And sometimes they don't. They forget that because their sense of love is automatic. For us, we're the other way around. And it's also interesting, by the way, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam and Chava, so Adam was created alone. So what is a man's fundamental emotional state? To be alone. That's what he knows. Having a spouse is a secondary, an additional thing for him. And so he has to learn how to get used to it because he was created alone and he lived alone. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu put him to sleep because believe me, if he wouldn't have put him to sleep, he would have said no. Put him to sleep, separated him, and so now having a spouse as a partner is a new emotional idea for him. It's a new psychological concept. And it's the way it is. First we are alone, then we become connected. A woman was created, she was always the other half of a husband. So by default, women are emotionally connected. But don't make a mistake, because women need independence and need autonomy and a feeling of their own space just as much as a man does. Not just as much, just as powerfully as a man does. The difference is in the ratio. For most men, they need 80% autonomy, 20% togetherness. Women need 80% togetherness and 20% autonomy. Again, I want you to know that when I say these numbers, statistics, 20, 80%, everybody is different. But that's the way it is. A man can be close with his wife when he walks out of the door and he goes to work. He's single until he comes home again. Most men, not all men. A man is single. His wife is home. He's not thinking about his wife. Most women will be thinking about their husbands or their relationships or their families wherever they go. It's on their mind. That's just the way it is.
Rabbi,
Yes.
sorry, you opened the door, you mentioned Adam and Hava.
Okay?
Okay, what I want to hear you is your take on she made me.
Too long then. I'm not going to go there right now.
Quick question. To go back to your earlier comment, you made the comment about when you see a child from a family, you say a child of shluchim,
Right.
he wants to go in a different direction.
Right?
How do you tend to explain when there are multiple children? One kid doesn't take to it. The rest, they all grew up in the same family. Presumably the environment wasn't so much different. 6 want to be shluchim, or the rest wants to do
How many children, you are one of how many children?
myself.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm one of 3.
one of three. I'm one of seven. My parents had 7 children in 9 years. And I sit with my brothers and sisters, and I talk about my parents. And there's overlap, a little bit of overlap, but I will tell you that my experience of who my father is, and I'm number 6, is entirely different than how my older sister sees him. He's an entirely different person. She describes him one way, I would describe him. I said, our father was like that? There's no way. Just can't be. My point is, you're thinking of a family as a homogeneous unit who experience everything the same. They don't experience everything the same. Children are influenced by one statement, which leaves an impact on them in a vulnerable moment, and it becomes the entire representation of their life.
And no backtracking.
Often you can't backtrack. I mean, you can backtrack if you're available, but if you don't know what happened, a parent says to a children, leave me alone. Why are you wasting my time? Go away. You're driving me crazy. What are you, stupid? Now, tomorrow, parent hugs the kid. Tomorrow, the parent was angry, came home and threw out a statement, never thought about it again, never even realized it came out of their mouth. That kid feels like they're stupid for the rest of their life, and they're fighting that statement for their entire life. They become Einstein. They become a PhD. Why? Because they heard their father or their mother call them stupid once. The other kid, mom and dad never said it. They're entirely different. So the answer to your question is you can be from the same family, but an episode can occur and it can make one child be entirely different than the other. Simply by a statement or comment you made once, I made once at the wrong time, the wrong moment, and that's it.
I have another answer I'll tell you. Not, you know people, that not everybody in their family became Bali Tshuva. What made one person decide to become a Bali Tshuva? Isn't it would...
No, his answer would be that person had an experience after they left the family, which made them become a Baal Tshuva.
No, something attracted, something for the good and for the bad.
No, his point is that if it's a family which makes a child go off, why is it that one child goes off and the other one doesn't? And the answer is because all the children in a family experience things differently. And one of them experiences in a tough way. I'm not saying in every case it's like that, but what I've often seen, that's the way it is. I want to end with this. We're talking about the Avos. One of the lessons I learned from the Avos about relationship is conversation, talking. We tend to, as men, we don't like to talk as much. We like to get over our emotion. One of the ways which some of us, and obviously I'm using myself as an example, we deal with difficult emotion. If I like you, I will ignore the negative about you. Why bring up the negative? Ultimately, I like you, the negative is not important. For other people, and often this is women, once they feel safe and they like you, that's when they want to get off their chest the thing which bothers them about you. It's actually an expression of love, which is a hard thing to understand. And that is, a woman will come home and she'll say, can we talk? And then she'll say, yesterday you did something which bothered me. And what does the man say? Are we talking or are we fighting? Why are you bringing up yesterday? Why bring this up? I was really upset. This happened in my office. I had a couple, and I'm trying to say, he says, I'm not interested in talking with my wife. He says, whenever we talk, we fight. She says, I don't know what he's talking about. I can't open my mouth. He shuts me down right away. I say, okay, why don't you guys do it right here in front of me? Bring up a conversation. It's Wednesday night. This is your 10 minutes. You're going to talk to each other. Start the conversation. He says, hi, honey. Of course, he has nothing to say. He says, how was your day? He says, great. And then he says, well, what's on your mind? He says, well, I wanted to talk to you about yesterday night. I was on the phone. I came home, and you were busy, and, you kind of ignored me when I came home. And he looks at me and he says, she wants to start a fight. Huh. She's already bringing up negative stuff. I want to sit. I want to be comfortable. Bring up something right away. And then I looked at that and I realized, I remember this. I remember this kind of interaction. I remember this frustration. But what he doesn't understand is that women need to talk through their emotion to get past it. Men don't need to do that. Most men don't. Actually, the truth is men do need to. If it's really, really important, they need to. But women do it naturally. They talk through their emotion. You know what happens? This couple, I made him sit there and I gave him a script. Told him exactly what to say. And at the end, he was supposed to say, wow, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry that happened. And she turns to him at the end of the session and she says, wow, this is the first time we're having a normal conversation. And it was scripted, and I told him this information in front of her. Didn't bother her. That didn't bother her. She knew it came from me. She loved it. And she says, I don't care. I need to hear it. And I'm finally hearing it. He's finally listening to me. So I gave him some practice to go home and to listen to his wife, what he thought was yelling at him. And he came back. And of course, sometimes he couldn't handle it. And he would just say, shut up and walk away, or get angry, or leave me alone, stop talking. Because he was feeling his wife's emotion. And he was feeling his wife's emotion. His emotion was getting stronger and stronger, and he couldn't handle it. And so he was pushing her away. When he finally learned just to sit there calmly and to breathe, and not to take it personally that he was being attacked, but that information was being shared, and that he doesn't have to listen to it as him being attacked, that he has to defend himself. I said, here's the way to do it. Think of your wife complaining about somebody else's husband. That somebody else's husband happens to be you. That's just a side point. Act as if it's somebody else and say, I can't believe he did that to you. I can't believe he said that. That's horrible. Wow, that person should really apologize. You know, that's how you talk to your wife about yourself. And she says, you know, this was the greatest conversation we've had. So that's the notion of conversation. When Avram and Sarah, interesting thing we find, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised Avram a child. And you know the story is that Sarah, after 10 years, was not able to give him a child, so she gave him Hagar. Hagar becomes pregnant, and Hagar treats Sarah badly, and Sarah comes to Avram and complains. And she says, Chamasi alecha, I'm angry at you. What does Avram say? He's a real decent husband. He says the right thing. He says, Asilo hatov beinayich. I apologize. Do whatever you think is right. Now, you don't understand what a mesiras nefesh that is. What a sacrifice that is for shalom bayis. Let's step back a moment and look at this and think what happened over here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised Avram, Lech lecha me'artzecha me'latcha me'beis avicha la'aretz asharecha ve'escha l'gogoda. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises Avram, I'm going to make you into a great nation. Sarah doesn't give him any children. Hagar finally gives him